And finally, it's the end of the season. Our opponents will be Aston Villa and kick-off will be at 4 p.m. It's likely to be on one or other of the channels, given that the game will at least be partly responsible for Villa's Premier League future, if any. After the last few games, it's now a straight race between Villa, Bournemouth and Watford for the two remaining places on the Championship Express. Villa, on 34 points and a minus 26 goal difference, currently sit just outside the drop zone, just above Watford, who have the same points, but following their 4-0 defeat to Manchester City have a minus 27 goal difference, as do Bournemouth, who have 3 points fewer. The fact that they're still in some form of contention to stay up can be attributed partly to their form over the past 3 games. Their 2-0 win over Palace was their first since the restart. They followed this with a point and a 1-1 draw against a very lacklustre Everton, and then the other night they got rid of an Arsenal side that contained 6 changes from the side that beat Man City in the Cup semi-final, something that probably went down really well at Watford. The other reason that they're in with a fighting chance of staying up is that Michael Oliver couldn't be bothered to trust his own eyes over the goal that never was in the match against Sheffield United. You'd forgotten about that, hadn't you? A barren spell over the Yuletide period encouraged them to add to the small fortune they spent in the summer. According to Daisy, the socially bubbled personal assistant with the beautiful smile, they purchased 3 strikers during the winter window. Biggest fee paid during this period was the £8.5 million paid to Belgians Genk for Mbwana Samatta, who, if there's any justice in this world, will be known to his fellow pros as Watts. We love an unusual award in these parts, and Samatta's 2017 Most Influential Young Tanzanian gong is right up there. He's picked up a couple of goals since his arrival, 50% of which, that is 1, has come in the league. The second striker to arrive was Spaniard Borja Baston. Technically, the player came in on a free from Swansea, though the reality of it all was that his presence in the land of leeks, daffodils and unpronounceable place names was something of an onerous burden to a side no longer in possession of Premier League status. Baston did originally leave for Malaga on loan during the Swans relegation season, whereupon Malaga also went down. I guess the loan system does lend itself to being able to be relegated simultaneously with 2 clubs, but it's a neat trick nonetheless. He had a further loan spell at Alaves before returning to Abertawe, which is Welsh for Swansea. He arrived for this season scoring 60 and 21, when it was agreed that his contract could be terminated 6 months early to allow him to move on to Villa. He's been used sparingly since his arrival, with but 2 sub-appearances to his name since January. The third striker signed was more of a one-for-the-future job. Local boy, who's from Sutton Coldfield, Louis Barry, arrived for £880,000 from Barcelona of all places. Barry started out at West Brom before signing a 3-year deal at Barca. There was a bit of a to-do over the deal, with the Baggies believing that, having brought the player up for 10 years, they were due some form of compensation. Barca denied that this was the case and flogged the player to Villa to be on the safe side. They also dipped a toe in the loan market. Spare a thought for Tom Heaton. There he was at Burnley, taking in all sorts of plaudits for his performances that saw him gain international recognition. Then a season-ending injury saw the arrival of Nick Pope, who it transpired was just as good, meaning that Heaton couldn't get back into the side. So it was off to Villa for a fresh start for the player, who promptly got injured again. Pepe, I will stand on the 6-yard line for penalties if I want to, Reina, came in on loan, and though he hasn't played in every game, Nyland was in goal for the infamous ball over the line match for example, he has been preferred in recent matches. The other loan arrival was the increasingly hapless Danny Drinkwater. Having blown his loan spell at Burnley, getting himself beaten up in a drunken altercation at a nightclub, Chelsea sent him out to Villa, where he managed a handful of games prior to lockdown. However, more tales of woe emerged, and there were tales of him being told to leave the training ground after an alleged headbutt donated in the direction of teammate Jota. I have no idea whether he's still on the staff at Villa Park. His loan spell may have ended last month, along with so many other contracts. However, clearly that is one troubled player, and I reckon it would take deliveries of large amounts of Tottenham-style lasagna to Villa Park before he got a look in this weekend. And only then, if there were no passing man with a dog to fall back on. Their standout player this season has been Jack Grealish. There's been much speculation linking the player with a move up the M6 in the general direction of Salford. The player himself has claimed that he has no idea where he'll be at the start of next season, which is usually code for I'm off. We do know where he'll be on the 25th of August, as he's been summoned to Brum Magistrates Court on that date to face charges relating to his not so much driving his car as crashing it back in the early hours of a lockdown morning. Commentators seem to delight in telling us that he's the most fouled player in the league. In a way, this is actually refreshing. I'm not advocating dirty player or anything, but if he turned up for a Sunday league match with that sort of haircut and his socks rolled down, it would be akin to him having "Kick Me" on the back of his shirt, where his name would go. So in that respect, it's nice to see at least one way in which top-flight football has remained true to its roots. Let's move on to the wild and wacky world of association football. Liverpool announced that the players would not be appearing with the Premier League trophy outside the ground when it was presented. Nothing to do with COVID, it turns out, just that the insurance premiums against it getting nicked were simply far too much. I understand they had Grealish on hand to present them with the trophy. Presumably, Mike Riley wasn't available. Elsewhere, if anyone had any doubt as to the ludicrous self-importance of referees in this country, we've been informed that the arch-buffoon Anthony Taylor has been given this year's cup final, despite having already taken charge of one in the past. The usual convention is that referees should get just the one final in their career. The reason given for this is that it would be unfair for a referee's family to miss out on going to his one and only chance of doing a cup final simply due to COVID. So, to summarise, we are now allocating cup final referee appointments based not on who's the best or least worst official for the job, but upon whether or not his missus will get to buy a brand new frock for her day out. And so on to us. I thought that was a fine performance at Old Trafford, and the point was well deserved. The first 10 to 15 minutes were a little hairy, it must be said, but after a while things settled down a bit. The goal was that rarest of beasts, a penalty to an away side at Old Trafford. Someone at Stockley Park will be nervously looking for a P45 over the next few weeks, I suggest. I'm glad Antonio scored. We can all laugh about it now, but the decision to let him take the spot kick seemed a little strange. Put it this way, with Noble stepping up to the spot, you expect him to score. With Antonio, you hope he will. All's well that ends well, I suppose. There were good performances all over. Since his one-match break due to injury, the skip has been superb. Bowen caused so many problems, he probably caught Grealish up in the most fouled player stakes. Johnson played so well he actually got some people's Man of the Match award. I lost count of how many times he made Rashford look stupid. One annoying thing about Sky's coverage was their bizarre belief that we wouldn't want to hear any post-match comment from players or managers, lest it interrupt our desire to watch Liverpool warming up for 20 minutes. Most people didn't even want to see them play. Back in the non-PGMOL sponsored world, the point of course means that, unless it's a Member of Parliament doing the counting, we're now mathematically safe from relegation and can concentrate on our job of winning this one. There may be injury doubts over Bowen and Cresswell, both of whom left the field of play early after picking up knocks in Salford. At the time of writing this, it's a bit early to assess their fitness. If I had to guess, I'd say we're more likely to see Bowen than Cresswell, his injury being more of an impact knock from one of the many and often unpunished attacks on his person throughout the evening. The prediction? Well, this is going to be a game where our opponents have one eye on their phones. Without the relegation factor, I'd have this down for a comfy win. However, given their need to stay up, it'll be closer than one might have thought. However, I still think we will prevail, and that they'll stay up, with Watford also losing and Bournemouth not doing enough to disturb the status quo at the bottom. So the £2.50 that I should have placed on us getting a penalty at Old Trafford, odds similar to those winning the lotto 6 weeks running, will instead be going on a 2-1 win to us, once I can find my face mask to enable me to visit Winston the turf accountant. Just remains to me to say thank you for reading, and for those of you with no attention span, for listening. Enjoy what's left of the summer, and enjoy the game.